In this video, we're going to talk about adding and subtracting integers. And throughout the video, we will be accompanied by my dog Jack. First, let's define an integer. An integer is a counting number. They consist of negative numbers, positive numbers, as well as zero. However, they do not include fractions and or decimals. So again, counting numbers can be -7, +6, 0, but no fractions, no decimals. In my opinion, the key to adding and subtracting integers is the number line. As you know, the number line consists of positive numbers, negative numbers, as well as 0. When you see a positive sign, it means we move to the right on a number line, and when we see a negative sign, it means we move to the left. In other words, the number line simulates the x-axis. Importantly, the number that sits to the right is always larger than a number to its left. So here, if you look at A versus B, we know that B is going to be larger than A simply because it sits to the right. The same holds true on the negative side of the number line. D is going to be larger than C because it sits to the right. -6, therefore, by definition, will be greater than -9. Here, we see a purple diamond and a yellow sports car. We know that the diamond is worth more than the sports car because it sits to the right. When you add and subtract integers, you're going to have a starting location, then you're going to have a sign, and then an integer. The integer tells us how far to go, and the sign tells us which direction we are going. So if we try to plot +7 on the number line, we are starting at 0. The positive sign is going to tell us which way to face, in this case to the right, and the integer is going to tell us how far we move in the direction we are facing. So here we will start at 0, we move 7 digits to the right, and we end up at 7. Ladies and gentlemen, all these problems are the same. It comes down to which way you are facing and how far you move in the direction you are facing. Again, which way am I facing and how far do I move in this direction? Okay, so far Jack is unimpressed with this video, so maybe we should move to some examples. Here, our starting point is 7. The minus sign tells us to face to the left, and the following integer is going to tell us how far we move in the direction that we are facing. So here, we're going to move 12 units to the left, and we will end up at -5. Here, our starting point is -3. We will look at the sign that follows. The following sign is negative. That means we will face to the left. The next integer, namely 4, is going to tell us how far we move in the direction we are facing. That puts us at -7. Next is a plus sign. By definition, that means we are going to face to the right. The next integer tells us how far we move in the direction we are facing, and that puts us at 0. Now, ladies and gentlemen, notice as we progressed through this problem, I had the integers shrink. That is because when you do these problems, once you are at your location, okay, we started at -3. I want you to forget about that negative sign. In fact, I want you to forget about this integer in its entirety. I only want you to focus on what is in front of you, what comes next. Next is a negative sign. So you're at your location. Okay, now you forget about this. You see a negative sign, that means you face to the left. You move 4 units, you are now going to be at a new location, namely -7. Forget about this negative sign. In fact, forget about the entire integer. Only focus on what comes next. Always look forward. Don't look behind. If you look behind, you're going to get confused with this negative sign. Forget about it. Once you're at your new location, you just look forward. Okay, now there are two types of equations. There's a type 1 equation with just one sign between the integer, and that's what we've been focusing on thus far. Notice, when I say one sign, I'm only talking about the jurisdiction directly between the integers. That negative for the -7 does not count. There's a second type of equation, namely when there are two signs located between the integers. Now, you may ask, what's the big deal? Why am I pointing this out? Well, I'll tell you what the big deal is. When you have just one sign between integers, you can go to the number line. So here we would go to -7, we would face to the right, move 5 digits, and we would end up at -2. However, when there are two signs located between integers, we are not allowed to go to the number line. Just remember, two signs, these two hands come up and block you from using the number line. We cannot progress to the number line unless and until we reduce these two signs to one sign. Now, you may be asking, why is it that two signs prevent us from using the number line? Well, here's why. If you have two signs, you don't know which way to face. So you have a starting location, then you have a positive sign telling you to face to the right, a negative sign telling you to face to the left. You're going to have a collision. You're not going to know what to do. You have to reduce the two signs to one sign. Now, fortunately, there are rules that help you, and here they are. When you have a plus and a minus sign, it reduces to just a minus sign. Minus and a plus, just a minus sign. So in other words, it doesn't matter what comes first. Whenever you have a plus and a minus sign, you have a minus sign that results. When you have two plus signs, it results in a plus sign. Two minus signs also results in a plus sign. This slide is a little bit less busy. Again, minus and a plus becomes a minus. Two minus signs becomes a plus, two pluses becomes a plus. Some of my students find it easier to memorize it this way. When the signs are different, it's a minus sign. When the signs are the same, whether it's 2 minus or 2 plus, it results in a plus sign. I think that this slide is so important that it warrants you taking a photograph of this slide and keeping it on your phone. So if this is new to you and you have not memorized these signs yet, these rules, I suggest you keep this photograph on your phone. You look at it periodically throughout the day until you have memorized these rules. They are that important. Okay, it looks like Jack is awake, so maybe it's time to move on to some examples. Okay, here we go. We have a starting location of -3. Once we are at our starting location, we forget about this negative sign. In fact, we forget about this integer and its sign in its entirety. We focus on what's coming next. What's coming next is a negative sign. That means we're going to be facing to the left, and we're going to move 7 digits to the left, and that is going to put us at -10. We are now at a new location. We forget about this. We look forward only. Next sign is positive. That means we look to the right. We move 4 digits to the right, and we end up at a final location of -6. Here is a type 2 equation. As you know, we cannot progress to the number line because there are two signs between the digits. This is one of the rare cases in mathematics, ladies and gentlemen, where I believe it's better to remove the parentheses rather than leave them. Here you could see the two signs facing each other more easily. So as we reduce these two signs to one sign, we will then be allowed to progress to the number line. The two negative signs become a positive. The minus and the plus result in a minus. The two pluses become a plus, and the minus and the plus become a minus. We are now ready to proceed to the number line. We have -1 as our starting location. Once we're there, we forget about that negative sign. In fact, we forget about the integer and its sign in its entirety. The plus sign tells us to look to the right. We move 9 digits to the right, and we end up at a new location, +9. +8. We forget about this +9. Next sign, minus, look to the left. We look to the left and we move 6 digits to the left, and that puts us at +2. Next, look to the right and we move 7 digits to the right. That puts us at +9. Finally, we look to the left and we move 2 digits to the left, and that puts us at a final location of +7, and that is our answer. Okay, this is what Jack does when he wants to go for a walk. So we are going to wrap up this video. And before we finish, however, I'd like to review the most important points. When there's only one sign between the integers, you can go to the number line. However, when you have 2 signs, you cannot go to the number line until these 2 signs are reduced to 1 sign. Again, when I'm talking about the number of signs between integers, I'm only talking about the space that's directly between the integers. Here are the rules. Very important. Need to be memorized. If you haven't yet, if you don't know these rules, again, please pause the video and take a photograph. Keep it on your phone until you have it memorized. Finally, I think it's important that once you are at a new location on the number line, I want you to ignore how you got there. Keep looking forward. Focus on the sign or the signs in front of you and the integers that are in front of you.